Hospitality is really important in the world, especially in Mexico. I don't have to say what it is in the US. We can form a pretty good panel of experts. As I said at the beginning, and Juan Carlos just said that. Please feel free to interrupt, and obviously, you can contribute with the conversation. So I want to start with Peyton. Peyton Wood is the designing director here in HKS. So the first part, Peyton, is going to be talking about designing destination and driving hospitality. So the question will be, from your global perspective, how is hospitality design evolving to create immersive experience driving destinations? And what role does architecture play in shaping emotional connection and sense of place?
Hello. Okay.
Yeah.
Creating destinations, yes. So I was thinking about this question, and some of the really old school, early century hotels that I go to, where it's a huge grand lobby, just ginormous space, and that's really like what you remember from that stay is this one room. And you go to your room, and there might be one restaurant over here, but it's really this one iconic space, which is cool. It's iconic, but it's very different than where we've moved in hospitality, which is much more about the experience and the discovery, and it's those transition spaces that you're going to between different layers of program. And I like Dan's slide. I had not seen that with the timeline of the fans before, during, and after an event. We really think about it the exact same way with hospitality. It might be just stretched longer. It might be the week or the weekend, or what are these people doing, and we choreograph their activity and their movement. We think about every single layered experience they could have, rather than just one iconic moment and then checking that box. So it's much more about the process and the holistic experience than just a single memorable moment.
Amazing. David, you just made it, and Rebecca, could you introduce yourself? Because I asked Patricia that be for your panel, but please tell us about you and what you do in Enbridge, please. Yes.
No.
Here we go. Hello. Perfect. Well, thank you for inviting us. My name is David Breeding, Senior VP of Design and Construction. I'm an architect. Actually started my career here in Dallas with one of the competitors. I won't say who, but my role is I lead design and construction. Rebecca Lowry is on the team as well, and Rebecca is very much in leading design, working with our design firms. But what we do is we manage all of our design for the majority of our projects. We're a very large hotel management company, third-party hotel management company. We manage about 85 brands internationally. The majority of ours are here in domestic in the U.S. With that, we also manage CapEx. We manage new builds. We do tons of renovations and PIPs. I myself have been in the hotel industry 30 years. That's pretty much all I've done. Lived in the operations side, design side, brand side, the ownership side, third-party side. So I kind of view things from a variety of perspectives. So thank you for inviting us.
Of course, welcome. And believe me, Enbridge is part of my life because in real estate, and we have a lot of developers and clients here, we travel a lot. And every hotel that I'm visiting, a Marriott or a Hilton, Enbridge is over there with the operational. So it's good when you go to a new destination or hotel to say, hey, Guillermo, how are you? So you feel like you're not alone. Okay, so David, we're going to stay with you with first question or topic is we want to talk about experience-driven operational and development alignment. As guest expectations shift toward more curated lifestyle-driven experiences, how are you aligning developing decisions with operational strategies to ensure each asset delivers both brand consistency and a strong sense of place?
So we look at it similar to the way I've seen in just the presentations I've been here right now. We integrate investment objectives with localized design and operational excellence. And with that, that allows us to create a really distinct sense of place. We're always striving for memorable experiences. I say that in a hotel is probably the only asset class that all facets of life take place in a hotel, which is really interesting. But what we do is we focus on stakeholder harmonization. So what I mean by that is we align the core objectives of the brand, the owner, the operator, and that provides the foundation for how we're going to go about, developing these hotels. Um, Brands have very specific criteria. I ran design for two different brands. They sometimes are on the ivory tower saying this is what we want. That's not always achievable. So you have to kind of break it down and really figure out how to deliver as much of that as you can. We focus before we even start design on being very market centric. We go out, we analyze comp sets, we analyze the culture, we experience the culture. We really try to pull it all together and understanding. So we're creating a unique space because prototype design, you just drop it in the center of, Cornfield, USA, it probably works. You drop it into, an urban environment, not so much. So we really try to focus on that. And then our operational integration is very much key to the delivery and the success of it. We really focus on bringing in local talent that understands what we're trying to accomplish. Because at the end of the day, it's about the experience. I noticed that, you had a couple of P's up there. We focus on people, process, and projects. You've also heard people, process, and profit. I think if you get the first three right, the profit follows.
Absolutely. Alicia, challenge and hospitality projects. I'm going to ask you, what are the most common challenges that developers and operators face when pursuing LEED certification in hospitality assets, especially in resort destination across all Mexico?
So we started working in hospitality right after COVID. And I think it's because in Mexico, especially in the Riviera Maya, the profits for hospitality are very high. So when you have a market that is so strong, sometimes you just, you don't need extras. And sustainability was seen as extras. So when we started working in hospitality, was mainly in COVID in Mexico. And it was so funny because it was with Twin Dolphin in Montage Hotel. And they didn't really need sustainability because nobody was demanding that. But they thought that it was very important because people were very stressed and really needed a promise that could be delivered and verified and certified. I think we often in sustainability and hospitality forget about all the stakeholders that are playing with our investments. And what we have learned we're working with the Estadio Azteca. I'm not going to call it Estadio Banorte ever, even though I work for them. But
Azteca will be forever. Don't worry.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did that was different, and I think it will go well with hospitality, is that we did a materiality assessment. And we brought that from the ESG world, but we applied it because FIFA did it in Qatar. So when we had to develop the environmental management plan for the Azteca, they say, okay, how are you putting together the sustainability plan? So in Qatar, they started with a materiality assessment. And I think every hospitality project should do a materiality assessment. And we have worked with Iberostar in Riviera Nayarit and other places. And there are several patterns that would be very useful. So on the materiality assessment, you basically drew a map of all your stakeholders and asked them what are their priorities. And for example, in the Estadio Azteca, we ask everybody, the neighbors, the fans, the investors, the bank that gave the money. I mean, everybody. We had around 2,000 people answering our surveys. And it was really funny because water was the main issue for everybody. And the Azteca at the beginning was not going to pursue water as a main topic when doing sustainability. But after the materiality assessment, they decided to invest a little bit more. And we actually had a very transformational project in water specific topic. And Mexico City has both flooding and water stress. So translating that into hospitality, I think the the locals and the local community always know what's important and what are the things that they value. And when we try to implement sustainability into hospitality, if we could have this measurement of what is the key thing, then we can extrapolate that into that's going to make the investment stronger. That's going to create more connectivity with the locals. And for example, the Estadio Banorte, always Estadio Azteca,
Yes.
always has people, like not talking about it in a nice way. But because we ask everybody and we put the priorities aligned with the locals, we have the answers to say we're doing our job. And as we said earlier, usually hotels start in places that are amazing in biodiversity and people want to go and see nature, and that's why they go to the hotels and they want to enjoy what is there and what is the locality offering, that is different from any other places. So I think, from a long-term perspective, we have to be able to protect that and based upon that, and then deliver, what's important to everybody.
But I think something is super important also than the environment. And we're talking about social infrastructure because we always take care the guest experiences. There's something different. But talking about the things that you did in Los Cabos or you're doing in Los Cabos, they really care about the workforce, the people over there. So you also have to design spaces for the local people to work there because they're going to be interacting and they're going to be living over there all days, all weeks, all month.
Well, the two programs that we had with Iberostar builds the housing for the people that work for them, but with Montage and Twin Dolphin and Maravilla Club, all the staff really, it's so funny because we did lead communities for the whole development, but then they had to commit to certain buildings, be part of the lead certification to comply with the bigger certification. So it was very interesting for us to see that the one place that they decided to certify was patios, which is basically the backstage where all the workers go and have their meal and change their uniform, and the maintenance crew are taking care of the golf carts and everything. And that was very interesting. And they have the least rotation in Cabo, and in hospitality, rotation for personnel is horrible, So I think people are understanding that investing in people and demonstrating that they're caring about them is also part of the sustainability long term, and that has really paid off. As I was saying, they didn't do the lead certification because nobody was asking. They did it because they thought that it will kind of protect them for future waves of whatever had to come, and they have been protected in terms of energy, in terms of water, and in terms of people rotation, which I think is a great business case.
Yes. Leonel, you also are pretty good and great development in Puerto Morelos. I always say that most of the people that wants to take a holiday or a vacation wants to find peace. So Puerto Morelos is one of the most original places that we have in Riviera Maya. We have a lot of spots in Riviera Maya. You go to Cancun, it's totally different to go to Playa del Carmen. You go to Tulum, and you go to another place over there. Tulum wants to be like Miami. That was a mistake. But at least in Puerto Morelos, you have peace. And for me, it's the most beautiful destination because you have all the local fishermen. Instead, you wake up in the morning, you have the landscape that was original when I remember I'm not going to say that, but maybe 30 years ago. So, Leonel, tell us, as a developer in Puerto Morelos, how are you leveraging the destination's more authentic, low-density character to differentiate to project in highly competitive Riviera Maya market?
Sure, Memo. Thanks. So Puerto Morelos offers something that becoming very rare in the Riviera Maya: authenticity. That's unique. Lower density and a real sense of place. So instead of competing with a large-scale destination, our strategy with INA is to lean into that. We are creating more curated, intimate experience where design and hospitality feel connected to the environment. Today, both travelers and investors are looking for identity, not just inventory. So, and that's where Puerto Morelos become a real advantage.
Yeah, I want to go there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Can you arrange that?
Sure, man.
Okay, Peyton, back to you. And it's going to be a comparison between US and Mexico design approach. When working across the US and Mexico, what key differences in regulation, climate, and cultural context must influence your design strategy? And how do you adapt while maintaining a consistent level of quality?
So when I think of US and Mexico hotels, my personal experience divides the two between the resorts, my vacations, and then my business travel. That's not always the case, obviously, but it is hard to not be biased in the answer and focusing on those differences. Um, but regardless of the resort versus like leisure versus business traveler, Mexico has taught the world how to do indoor outdoor, has taught the world how to do, shaded circulation, courtyards. It's environmentally, it's a very different standard than what we in the US have created as the norm, which is, large indoor air conditioned singular buildings. And that's been the norm for a long time. I do think, and it's great that we're teaching each other basically, in that in the US, owners are finding more and more the importance, and just it's what the people want, to have more indoor outdoor spaces, to have that experience, which you can do in an urban environment. I'm thinking of like the W Nashville is one of our more recent projects, where it's a lot of outdoor space just done vertically because it's urban. So instead of a spread out orientation, you're going, in that instance, you've got, your street level outdoor dining. If you go up one more level, you've got your lobby outdoor terrace that has a amphitheater seating up to this huge pool deck. And then there's another rooftop bar. It's just this very layered experiential outdoor spaces going up the building. And so we're trying to be Mexico in that regard. But in terms of what the US has learned to do well is, it's operational rigor and efficiency. And I think I see that now in our resorts work that we're doing more. We're kind of pulling that same rigor into the resort. It's can be much more difficult to do where you're spread out villa to villa to lobby to restaurant. But I think that the best hotels achieve both. It's a combination of those two things.
Right. I'm amazed because now even though the hotels also as the cruise ships, they're now the hotels the destinations. You see in the US, big hotels. There was in Fort Lauderdale like 2 weeks ago, and they're building a new Omni hotel with 1,000 keys. You don't have too much market over there, but 1,000 keys, it's a lot. It's a destination. I imagine it could be inside, no? But for me, the most important is to keep the hotel as a destination and part of the city, no? Okay, David, with you again, talking about operation, integration, and development life cycle. From your perspective, in what stage should operators be embedded into the design and planning process to truly influence project outcomes? And what are the most common value gaps on inefficiencies you see when operator input comes in too late?
The short answer is the sooner the better. Absolutely. We've realized that when we bring the operators in early as possible, they become co-creators of the experience versus just end users. It also helps them understand the why of what we're designing so they can then begin to use that more authentically and explain it to the guests as part of the emotional experience. So the sooner the better. Always get them in. The challenge we run into is when they're not involved in the beginning, they always want to come in. They lack emotional ownership, operational inefficiencies. And then, as we all know, we've built many hotels and many buildings. When the operators come in, they want to automatically start redesigning and throw it into a CapEx cycle. That's not the right thing to do. So we get them in as soon as we can. We see that, there's a huge disconnect in the narrative. If they're not brought in earlier, they tend to make up stories themselves and sort of explain the design away, which is not really what the intent is. And the guest goes away thinking that it's something, but it's really not what you intended it to be. We call that narrative drift. And then just operational friction. Just we always, when we are looking at it, we're looking at it not only from the experience, but we're looking at it from the number of full-time employees it takes to operate it. So understanding spatial adjacencies, how can you operate two spaces with one employee versus two employees, location of sundry shop, back of house, things like that. We often find when we're brought in late, because we're brought in late to projects sometimes, we found that back of house or front of house offices are just not designed in the most efficient way. We've seen some, Rebecca was working on one already in CDs. The front office was like 8 floors higher than the main lobby. We're like, well, how does that work? So just bringing them in early and helping owners understand. I think we also, I always say you have to have courageous conversations. You have to tell an owner what an owner needs to know to make an informed decision, not what they want to hear. And sometimes their best ideas are not the greatest ideas. You have to figure out a way to finesse that and tell them that. So we pull that in from the very beginning as soon as we can. And we just walk down the hall and we talk to the operations team, or we call the brand. We've got good relationships with all of our brands. And we utilize our brands as an ally to help deliver the project. Not all of our hotels are branded. We have quite a few that are unbranded.
And believe me, now the hotels, resorts, and business hotels in Mexico are the sexiest market. But everybody wants to follow that wave. But the most important that they have to look at it is operation. Because without the operation, it doesn't care what brand you're using. It just have a management per se. Alicia, again with you. Future of sustainable in hospitality. Looking ahead, what trends such as water, that's important conservation, energy efficiency, or regenerative design will define the next generation of hospitality developments?
Well, we are seeing a lot more technology developed for hotels. And you would think that the biggest hotels would benefit from that. But I see that every size hotel could benefit from better technology. And I'm just going to point to 2 or 3 things. Of course, in water, there's a lot of water treatment plants that now can purify so much better. And even though, for example, in Los Cabos that we have several places with water scarcity, just recycling water with technology could save you so much. And people, when we put the business case for how much they will save, if they just put a water treatment plant, and sometimes they do have the space, especially if it's not in the city, that will help them so much, especially for drinking water, not for washing but just, so people can have the warranty of being healthy and safe while they're at the hotel. But the one thing that is consistent for us is the waste management is never designed into the hotels properly. They usually don't have enough space, and legislation is something that is changing. For example, Mexico, the circular economy legislation, it's been very strong. They want everybody to recycle. And how can you recycle if you cannot even separate or train your staff to do the waste management and separation? And also, there are again, a lot of technology of waste compactors, just things that will help you do that in a smaller space, even if you didn't plan for that at the beginning. And we've seen that also in stadiums, like the Q2 has a very small waste management area, and they manage a huge thing versus the Azteca that has a humongous thing, and it's not very efficient. And I think technology will definitely help. And in terms of, lighting, I think we do have come down very much to very high efficiency. Now we have to go into quality. LED or white light is horrible, and with high end, you always need, warm lighting and things like that. But also, you don't want, and this is something that we have seen, when people get too sophisticated and make all the management systems so automatic, especially in small hotels or even in big, it can be very chaotic if people do not know how to manage the building management systems. So sometimes just a very simple thing that could give the operators a really good handle on how to turn on and off the things and how to really manage them and walk through the building is very important than a super sophisticated. I mean, we have seen so many building management systems just shut down, and having the person operating them just like, okay, I'll go and turn that off and it's sometimes you want to go too technical or too sophisticated. It has to be to a certain level that it's simple, because if the lighting is so complicated that nobody knows how to program it, it's not gonna go. So sometimes a lot of the good features of sustainability are lost because the operators do not know how to use it. And I often tell them, you have a Ferrari and use it like a Nissan, not to say anything wrong about Nissan, but that very simple car, I meant, so we do a lot of training to the people. I think training and understanding how the building has been designed, the training to the operators is a must. And sometimes with all the rotation that they have, I think the most sustainable thing is to keep your staff trained so they can actually tap into and harvest the benefits of all the technology that you have embedded into your hotels. But also, in water, we do, especially with the super high-end Cabo, we have a lot of places that are used 10 days a year with the swimming pools and the jacuzzis turned on 100% of the time. And we have been insisting that we shouldn't do that, but it's very hard for the hotel operators to say, no, I have to be ready for my, like, can't you just ask them to give you a call in advance 24 hours and then you turn everything on? And so what I'm trying to say with this is like, what are we promising that it's harming the whole environment, Like, who cares? If you're not there, why do you need your jacuzzi on?
For the people to take care of the property.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think, and what we have found is that sustainability can be very simple acts. Maybe it's scheduling, maybe it's just managing things better, maybe it's learning how to tap into how your systems work. But because you're there every day, and sometimes they don't even pay attention to the operators, and we have to come as an engineer, as a consultancy firm, and say, oh, what actually he's been saying all along is the right way to do it, or something like that. Sometimes really listening to people, but also getting the training to operating better. And also the other thing that we have found operating buildings in general, like for existing buildings, is that there's always new things that you have to implement. We have work in buildings that we have certified now for 20 years. And we have very good clients that say, okay, what else do we do? What else do we do? And so sustainability has been like an everyday act, and you cannot spend, as we say in Mexico, you cannot put your marbles all in You have to do it little by little. So now they're used to, invest every year in sustainability, and now they have a rhythm, and now they know that every year is going to come a new trend, and they have to allocate some money to the new trend. Now we're working a lot with waste management because we have the water efficiency and the energy efficiency covered, and now we're going to the next item. So just allocate money.
More about the mindset.
It's a mindset, definitely.
Really conscious.
And don't say marbles. I remember when I was a kid, I played marbles. Nobody play marbles anymore.
Come on, we all play marbles.
Okay.
No?
I was a champion also, but not anymore. So too many champions in this table.
First of all, Mr. Flowers, congratulations on the project. Amazing, amazing. Me as a architect developer, congratulations on that kind of thing. And something that I haven't heard is that the Achilles heel in all of developers and all these projects is zoning and city dealing. I mean, I've been in Cabo, I work a lot. I know Twin Dolphins when they changed the montage, and I know the Chileno Bay, they changed the road to the other side to make the golf course. And there was a disaster of timing in me as a capital raiser, which is basically what I do, right? I'm a hunter and try to find deals all the time in capital raising with Jason, and he knows with the lending company that we kind of be part of it. The project, for example, the one we had in Las Colinas, just to change the zoning for the
It was an office building initially, but we had to change it into condos.
but it was a year. In a year, there's money invested. There's people that already had some skin on the game and is ready. And it's as an architect, I understand your language as well as you, and I understand sustainability and lead in grade and experience. And I was very involved in experience architecture and marketing, and I understand that like the palm of my hand. But zoning and dealing with cities, maybe use huge guys, maybe you have all the connections with cities, but I know that you must have a huge legal department, something to deal with all those cities. So
Lawrence.
believe me, that's something that really kills projects. I've seen a lot of projects being totally dead because
Yeah.
and also the greed of the developers. They get more footage, more density because we're in business, no? So
I think Peyton, you have a comment that I can.
Well, did you say Las Colinas? Is that what?
yes,
Yeah, I mean, when was that?
But in this past year,
So I feel like it's moving in the right direction. I hear you. Because Texas recently passed. I mean, I'm so shocked that Texas was on the
and
forefront.
we're from Houston, and Houston is a mess because
Houston's a mess.
There's no sun. I mean, Houston is the worst city for this because there's no sunning.
but it's amazing for developers.
It is.
It is amazing for
But
developers.
and that flexibility is what Texas passed SB 840, which is I don't know if you're familiar, but it's basically anything that's zoned, and this is Texas. This is a mandate that if it is zoned commercial, you can do any multifamily, any FAR.
Yeah.
Maybe any height,
No, I think so.
In Houston, yes.
anywhere
In Texas.
in Texas.
So
It's
I
a
think
big deal.
there's two things that kind of happening too as well. Like I think a lot of cities, a lot of actually legislators in Texas are noticing that a lot of these cities have ancient old zoning that used to help with limiting certain uses in certain areas, but has actually limited what can happen in our cities now. So like for example, Dallas. We are losing development to what's happening in the suburbs because their zoning is just easier, quicker. They can get things done. So I think as we're starting to, city of Dallas is kind of more. I came from the city of Dallas, so I actually speak zoning ease, and I guess also thinking from an architecture standpoint. We want to remove those barriers. So we're actually trying to change the entire zoning to be clearer and a bit more straightforward, just like our competitors in other cities. So I think we're seeing development leave the city for other emerging markets outside of Dallas. And I think going back to Houston, being a city that doesn't have zoning technically, but it has other mechanisms that act as zoning, we start to see things like that in terms of like, that provides flexibility for developers to do unique things. And I think in Dallas, like the rigidity of our zoning is starting to limit what can happen. So we're looking to Houston, other places to help with that. But the state has kind of done preempted, like, okay, we know you all are trying to do this, but you're slow. So we're going to say that these kind of developments should happen regardless of, your local zoning kind of laws, just because we're seeing development go to other states actually too. So that they,
Texas is great. I mean,
Yeah,
Texas,
right.
I lived 15 years in San Diego, California. California is impossible.
No, it's
I mean,
it's funny because like San Diego and Dallas, they're the same in terms of like population. They're the same in terms of like even sociodemographics. But a lot of local restrictions actually prevent development. So I think the city has seen that too as well. The state has seen that, and they don't want to repeat what's happened in California and other places. So they're basically preempting a lot of those decisions from the state level, like Payne mentioned.
Okay.
Sorry. I know that I started to burn something here today.
No, but it was good.
Yeah, we can talk for hours on that.
We're recording, so this is going to be good content. So, Leonel, I guess with you. Condo hotel model and buyer appeal, that's important. What strategies are you using to structure the condo model, balancing owner usage, rental income, and brand consistency to make product attractive for both investors and operators?
Yes, Mo. Like Alicia and David said earlier, the biggest challenge in the condotel model is aligning three key players: the investor, the operator, and the brand. So our focus has been to create a very clear structure where investors understand they can use the property at any time and experience a unique moment with a sense of being part of it. It's not just selling units; it's about building a product that performs over time. And when the and one, I'm sorry, and when that alignment is clear, we think that trust follows, right?
That's amazing. That's a problem in the Riviera Maya. Sometimes people just want to use it and then go back for the next year because it's seasonal.
Yes.
People that really appreciate is to have these roots in the same property and they will take care of
Exactly.
it. So,
So
Peyton,
I
yes.
want to add just a little bit. So there are very new trends, as Peyton was saying. For example, in Cabo, people are actually moving, like especially like retired people. They decided just to move. So we're working with Kibira, another Pueblo Bonito in Cabo, and now the offering, even with branded residents, is with for people to actually live there. So other things are now coming up, like they need supermarkets and they need hospitals and they need other infrastructure that wasn't thought of. So you change your model, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, where's the hospital? Where is the school? Where is the other things? And so I think in order for them, we need to build cities, not just hotels or residences. We need infrastructure, and not just infrastructure for the tourists or the people that are going to be there for, but all for the service of all the other people. And everybody has to be able to have energy, water, biodiversity, clean, environments, and of course parks where everybody can get together and things like that. So just
Perfect. Okay, the last part, Peyton, this is be linked to Enbridge maybe. How do you ensure that design decisions not only elevate aesthetics, but also improve operational efficiency for operators, particularly in areas like circulation, staffing, and guest flow?
Yeah, he summed this up exactly right. And because it's adjacencies, it's circulation, it's even simple things like sight lines. Like if one staff can see multiple spaces, that's one staff can handle that. You know what I mean? If they're all divided, you're duplicating. And I was thinking about, there was a day early in my career, it was probably the most valuable day of my career, becoming a hotel planner. And it was spending the day with the director of engineering at a big hotel, and just watching it all day, just the trash in and out, the laundry chute clogging up, you know, the shifts, the housekeeping shift coming in, how they distribute the carts, how they all go up to their floor, and just all of it, the food service. It is a machine. And until you see it, like if you ever hire an architect other than HKS, which you shouldn't, but if you do, make sure they spend a day in the ops of a hotel, because otherwise they just won't get it. And I will say I saw a picture though in Dan's presentation, which is one of my favorite shots of our Lowe's, or it's one of the two Lowe's in Arlington, and it's this outdoor living space with Texas AT&T Stadium in the background. Very intentionally designed, very intentionally centered on this huge outdoor living room. But it is literally a hole we cut through the ground floor of this building. So imagine you've got a hotel, we just carved a hole through the middle, which, if you can imagine, is really the worst thing you can do for operations, because it's like you're dissecting service from one side to the other. But there are some times to break the rules. That was one of those things that made us, we were worried. We're like, if this doesn't succeed, that we just really cut down operational efficiency for nothing. But it was a total payback. I mean, it is the heartbeat of that property, and I'm sure the revenue they get more than pays for the extra circulation we had to do to get service to the other side of the building. But there are times to break the rules, is my point, for something very memorable and special. But otherwise, yeah, if you don't get the ops right, the property just won't be a success.
Exactly. We gotta make a conscious about that too. Okay, last question for David. Driving NOI through operational excellences. Across the projects you oversee, which operational levers, whether in technology integration, staffing models, or revenue optimization, are having the greatest impact on NOI performance and long-term asset value from a development standpoint?
Well, we focus on quite a few, but I think one of our main pillars is think like a guest, act like an owner. So as we walk through hotels, that's how we think. But in order to maximize our NOI and long-term asset value, we prioritize the development decisions that balance with guest satisfaction and owner accountability. The strategy is on three primary levers. Technology as a profit center. We invest very, very, very heavily in technology. We crunch data like you guys crunch data. That data helps inform design decisions. It helps inform how we operate our hotel, how you price the model. We're constantly churning that. And we've created these proprietary and scalable technology platforms because we're a very large hotel management company. So we're constantly looking at that. Not just for the guest convenience, but also driving operational efficiencies. Because nothing worse than you placing a phone call needing something, it takes 20 minutes to get there. We're figuring out how to get there quicker. We're figuring out how to really maximize that, because it's all about guest experience. We also utilize global benchmarking and best practices because we have hotels all around the world that we manage and we operate and we develop. So we're being able to pull those different learnings from each of our hotels and apply those globally to all of our other hotels and really create this model that really works. Collective intelligence, allows us to optimize the performance at any of our assets. And then market adaptive staffing and revenue models. We really focus on, as I mentioned, data-driven insights from multiple markets, but we also refine the models and really tweak the labor costs as best we can. Again, going back to buying the right talent in the market that actually understands the culture, understands the market, and can deliver that experience, because we're creating memorable experiences across all of our hotels. Doesn't matter where the chain scale is, it's got to be a memorable experience no matter which hotel you go into.
Well, thank you very much. I think we have a pretty great content. The idea to have these small events or boutique events, as I like to call it, is we record all the content that we have, and we choose all of you because you are great leaders in your field. And we have the best architects, we have developers. I don't like so much the finance here because numbers is right now very important, but the most important is to create value and best practices to create this conscious. And the most important is what I'm keeping is we have to measure the good data for the future, and adaptation, I think, is everything, no? And planning everything. So thank you very much, Juan Carlos. Thank you very much, HKS Indeles. You'll be a great host. And let's make a little bit network and then have some happy hour and have some beers. Why not? Thank you. Thank you very much.